Yeah, my name's John Sennings. Like I say, I'm from Squint, based in London. I work there as a technical editor, principally, but part of my job role is kind of dealing with pipeline, a lot of comping. I come from compositing background. I also come from a music background, so I tend to get involved in a lot of that kind of thing as well. So this presentation there's a lot to go through, so questions are awesome. At the same time, there's a lot to go through, so I'm repeating this, doing like a 2-hour workshop, which will be pretty much the same thing, but with more stuff in there, extended, and probably more open for people to throw bits and pieces at me. So, without further ado, the long version of this, I actually changed it for the second one, but basically what I'm going to talk about is Squint Opera renowned, or well, not renowned, but known for architectural visualization, but we do a hell of a lot of other stuff. So I'm going to kind of introduce you to some of the other stuff that we do, talk about how our pipelines become slightly different depending on what projects we do, mainly sort of focused on the sort of cinematic side of things, and then also talk about some of the other bits and pieces that we do, which is work orientated, that hopefully you'll find interesting. So this is our kind of mantra. I'm not going to read it out to you because I'm sure you've hopefully read it by now, but basically core things in this is we do lots of different stuff, and then also we try and have fun with stuff. So we're kind of very fun-orientated people, which is a good thing. So I'll quickly show you our old showreel. We've got a new one coming with new stuff, but just to give you a taste for those who don't know us, and hopefully this will work. Okay, so, that looks very done. Sorry, there is. So a little brief history of Squint, very brief. Basically, like most companies, it started with sort of a collection of friends who moved into doing architectural viz. One of those was the son of architect Will Alsop, and basically they started making films for his architectural visions and stuff. And out of that, we had a guy called Nick who joined, who was 3D orientated and brought in kind of 3ds Max and V-Ray into kind of the mix. And then, from my point of view, I joined a year and a half, 8 months ago, and I come from a film background, mainly low-budget, independent, terrible horror movies and such. So it was perfect for Squint. But what I came on board was initially to look after the pipeline from a kind of hero point of view, as well as editing. But with that, because of the nature of a lot of people there, were kind of multi-skilled as such. So I was a compositor really by my main role. So we kind of brought that in to the fold. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. That's what I'm going to talk a lot about, is kind of this pipeline of making things a bit more cinematic, about our approach to how we do films. We have offices in London, like I say, one in Battersea. Unfortunately, we're moving very soon, which is such a shame. But we do have offices in Melbourne, Abu Dhabi, and we've got ones that's kind of opening and starting up in New York and Hong Kong and Mumbai. So it's all kind of going there. Like I say, we're doing lots of kind of interesting stuff. That's hopefully I'm going to show you. So architectural communications is the main thing. So I'll quickly go through this because this is possibly what most of you guys are aware of. We kind of have different clients ranging from sort of Google, BBC, London Olympics, Big, Thomas Heatherwick, and our approach to it is we do stills, we do all that kind of thing. At the same time, what we do a lot of is also films, and we've tried to approach them in, like I say, a quite cinematic manner, making storylines or making like kind of documentary feel to things. So there's still that element of it's architectural viz, but hopefully, like a lot of companies are as well, changing slightly how people present their work. So I'll show you this, which is one of the things we did recently, just as an example of one of the pieces of work that we're trying to do at the moment.
That was actually why Sandy was so bad, is because of the phase of the moon, it was already a very large high tide, as well as the storm surge coming in with the wind and the tide lining up perfectly to give us 14-foot tides instead of 8-foot. The most shocking part of Hurricane Sandy was the fact that it exceeded expectations.
I think the sheer magnitude of it caught a lot of people off guard.
When Hurricane Sandy came, we were not prepared at all, not even the slightest.
Yeah, it was like an alien invasion of water. And not the good kind of water.
So yeah, and then it came right in front of us. There was literally boats on 14th Street floating in front of our window.
We had a sub-basement level office a block from here, and it was totally covered in water for 2 days. So we lost everything. Everything.
We're really concerned about another storm and the flooding as possible, and we think that the next time it's going to come even further inland.
I'd like to see some type of flood protection in this area. That's going to happen. We're vulnerable, obviously, being close to the water.
Something that brings like more different walks of life. You know, another escape from just the busyness and hustle and bustle.
Space that has really become community space, cultural space, and active uses.
Everyone enjoys space. And in New York and other congested cities, it's hard to come by.
Anything that makes the cities greener is just such a wonderful thing for not only the environment, but the people that live in the city too, to be able to be around that space.
The plans, the berming, the sense of how it can become into the natural landscape itself, how we want to program that is really the next challenge. We are the link, we're the tip in the sense of the big U. It's important that the entire waterfront of Lower Manhattan build in the plans that have been put forward. Because we can not only fortify this great city of New York, but be a model for cities all over the world.
Well, that's just one example of kind of one of the things we're doing. We've got a lot of stuff recently where we're doing a lot more filming in-house. So we work with our own camera equipment that we have, as well as other DOPs. We shoot on a variety of stuff, and we're pretty much the full pre-production, production, post-production side, delivery of the whole thing. Audio as well. We work with companies. A company that does the whole audio for us, and so we're kind of a full production house mentality to the whole thing. So having said that, we've also moved into doing a lot of broadcast work. This is a 52 episode BBC kids cartoon that we produced completely in-house. Basically taking our existing pipeline of 3ds Max, V-Ray and Nuke, and creating what was quite a challenge, to say the least. So our offices just expanded to, we added like another 50, 60 people, artists, nothing to do with architectural viz. They're all animators, they're all renderers, you know, they're all lighting, all compositing team. So I'll show you a little thing of this. This has just come out in England, in BBC, and so far it's doing quite well. One other important thing from this kind of thing is that we're very geared towards IP. So a lot of the stuff that we're trying to do ourselves is very in-house. We own the rights to it, really. So it's an investment from that point of view. It's not just a service industry thing. Obviously, we do a lot of service industry work, but at the same time, we're trying to build up our own kind of IP. So I'll show you a little kind of trailer for it. I actually sit in the edit suite next to this, so I've heard the theme tune and this like for the last year. And as much as I love it, I hate it as well. So in a nice way. Yeah, so basically we've spent the last year creating 52 episodes out there. They're pretty much done. Like I said, it's been quite sort of learning experience, especially from our point of view, taking our existing pipeline, 3ds Max, going through and translating that so it actually works. We've worked with Hero, we've worked with Premiere and stuff. We've had lots and lots of issues with stuff. It's been quite a learning experience. With a bit of luck, we've got a second season coming, and we're actually working on other stuff. So, like I say, we have our architectural viz, and then we have this, which is called Doodle, which is a completely different company, essentially, but still the same, under Squint Opera, producing this kind of stuff. Other things, just to breeze through some of the other work we do a lot of what we termed art and culture. A lot of installation stuff, working with in museums. From a cinematic point of view, so also that we did this Hollywood costumes thing, so kind of got to sort of hang around and do stuff with Indiana Jones, which was always a dream of mine. So we deal with a lot of game and apps. I'm moving very much into a lot of this territory. We work, again, like I say, with the audio side, working with the company, we work with a gaming apps company, so we're kind of forming these relationships with lots of different companies, bring those in, and it's kind of one of the ideals of what Squint Opera is about. So there's that side as well. moving into VR, moving into lots of different areas, and always just trying to try different things. So even when we're not busy, we're always busy, it seems. So one from my point of view, which is really exciting, is that we're bridging into visual effects for film, TV, and advertising. At the moment, we're just about to start working again for the BBC and E4 on some TV series over there, which are going to be quite exciting. We're doing some feature film work. We're also working with a guy that we know who's been involved with a Squint opera, a guy called Has. I don't know if you're aware of him. He's a sort of independent filmmaker. I've worked on 3 of his short films, and we all kind of know him very well. So that's another kind of thing that we're quite excited about. Again, we're approaching from the IP side as well, so I don't doubt at some point we'll be sort of saying, hey, let's make a feature film, and off we go, and then we're busy for another couple of years doing craziness. Bedroom lifestyle. One of the reasons I joined Squint is pretty much this. We own a bar, which is pretty bloody awesome. I'll make a bit, I don't know why. But, sorry? Puncture. Oh. So I'll show you a quick video, but like I say, we had, during the 2008 crash, I wasn't there, but they had no work, so they kind of had this space downstairs under our offices, and they went and bought a load of beers and sold them, probably highly illegally. But they named it a doodle bar, as you'll see in a second. Basically, people can come in and draw over the walls. So it's kind of turned into this sort of very arty pub, literally. And it's great. It's also a terrible thing having a bar right under where you work. So I've survived so far.
The Doodle Bar began life as an experiment, really, but it grew really quickly into a burgeoning cultural hub. Squint Opera, the creative agency and production house behind the Doodle Bar, found the warehouse space below their Battersea office becoming more and more disused when the recession hit in 2007. The original idea was to whitewash the walls and create a blank canvas for creativity, for people to feel free to express themselves, mess around, draw on the walls, floors and ceilings. We managed to capture the imaginations of people and found ourselves pretty quickly near the centre of the first major wave of pop-ups and exciting urban space regenerators. We refurbished our outside space, which we fondly call our beach, and we continue to curate the space around us with like-minded friends and businesses. 33 Parkgate Road was quickly brimming again with rent-paying businesses, a gin distillery and an art gallery. We helped transform the site on behalf of the landlord into a valued commercial space, a working yard with a creative and community ethos as a backdrop. Lots of interesting companies and people started approaching us, and our regular events, live drawing, Spanish film night, all grew and were tailored to communities around us. We also have regular half-term kids clubs and a growing trusted support from families across London, not just locally. The Doodle Bar has grown with all the change around it, and now it requires a more permanent home for the next stage, which will be bigger and better. We have a loyal customer base from both locally and afar. They have affection for us as an event space, a bar, and I think also our brand now. We've developed a strong network of trusted quality food traders who share our passion for food and are curating our own foodie events. This year we've hosted some really big events. The recent talk by Thomas Heatherwick, the Guardian Conference, and the Live There Manifesto launch. Gareth Matthews on Radio 6 recently promoted our full charity fundraiser, which was an amazing showcase of new music. It really feels like we've grown into our skin as a trusted venue, bar and brand.
Yeah, so one thing out of that as well is that we sort of kind of produce a lot of our stuff in-house. So that video is done completely by us. The music, like I say, is done by our company that we work with. So that's kind of a brief introduction to a lot of the different stuff that we do. Like I say, we're not just architectural viz, but we obviously have that side of it. And we're always trying to do, all sorts of different stuff. If you ever come and visit us, we'll take you to the bar. It's always It's a good thing. So I'd say come before December, because unfortunately we're moving because everything's been knocked down to make way for architectural new projects for rich people, sadly. And they've already asked us to do the film for it, so which was a little bit salt in the wound and such. But the main other thing I wanted to kind of talk about was our pipeline for movies. So this is where it gets a bit more sort of techie. I'll take you through the kind of pre-production, production, post-production side of it. Feel free to ask any questions. Like I say, I'll go into more depth with a lot of this in the other presentation. If there's specific questions, you can always ask me stuff anyway. So one thing that we're kind of really big on which is important in terms of our pipeline, is making sure training and skills advancement and all that kind of thing exists there. So our people, our artists, they have their specific skills. Whether they're a modeler, that kind of thing. But we're always trying to educate and teach them different stuff. So a lot of our 3D artists at the moment are getting very involved with comp, which is fantastic, because what it does mean is that once the 3D is done, there's normally 2 days where we've got loads and loads of people who can help with all the comp, and also they know how they've lit it, so what it's supposed to look like, which is really, really handy. So we're always kind of training people up for that kind of thing. At the same time, educating clients is quite important. Basically making sure that they understand how our pipeline is kind of going to work in a very sort of broad, and I'll show you a video in a sec, but kind of that we show them, just to give them the idea of kind of what to expect. You're not going to see the final film like a week after we've started, kind of thing. What they expect to see and how we can approach this stuff. So I'll just show you this little process film, hopefully. So basically the idea is just to give them a brief idea, so they're not scared when they see, like grey people running around and all sorts of stuff, and it's just like they know kind of what's coming, hopefully what it's going to look like after the fact. So I apologise why this keeps dulling a bit, but hopefully it's not too annoying. So I'm going to briefly go through some of the aspects, some of the stuff that I'm involved with. There's obviously a lot more to this kind of thing. And again, a bit later I can go through and answer a few more questions. So ideas and storyboards and concepts. I'm sure you guys know this kind of thing, but we do spend our time trying to put together nice storyboards, get everything down, and it can prove very, very handy. This is just one example of some of the kind of ideas that we put together. Already as well, from a production point of view, naming shots, we try and make sure that everything runs smoothly, so that we can look at stuff from a personal pipeline point of view. Naming conventions, all that kind of thing is very important, so it's always great to kind of see how that's going to sit in, even from the start of the project. Even we know what things are being numbered as. Animatics, I'm sure you're all aware of the concept of animatics. again, the most simple thing, I apologise for the song. This is what I heard on the plane coming over here. So, this is something that we did for BIG, which was the World Trade Center 2 project recently. And again, it's just very simple, as you guys have probably all dealt with animatics, just to get ideas, just to try and nail down imagery, feel, all that kind of thing. I won't show you all of it, we'll probably look at all of it a bit later, and I'll show you the final film as well in the other thing, but that's all available online. And again, already bringing in very, very, very simple kind of geometry, just to show basically what's going on. Hopefully the client doesn't look at that and say, what the hell is going on? I don't understand what that, because they've already seen. And is that our final movie? Is it going to look like that? So that's part, again, is the educational process of things. So that's very brief pre-production. The production side and the post-production side is more interesting as far as I'm concerned. So Squint has moved into doing a lot of filming stuff. We don't really sort of hire out to other companies to go and do it. We're very heavily involved. We work with our own DOPs, we work with our own camera crews. We do a lot of green screen work, obviously, with this kind of architectural viz side of things, but then we're also moving into filming a lot of stuff that's live, you know, going out to New York. I just recently, last month, went out to Hong Kong, and we did a massive shoot for them. So it's all quite exciting, doing a lot more on-set stuff. So the job role has kind of changed a little bit for us. So when we originally did green screen work especially, our 3D lead would be essentially the VFX supervision. So this is kind of why I've sort of put VFX supervision. Coming from film point of view, you'd always have a VFX supervisor on set who's in charge of collecting data and making sure that everything we're filming is actually going to make sense, and it's not going to, you know, we're not going to sit in there post-production and it's like, this is wrong, and we've just spent 10 grand filming something that's actually, you know, crap. So part of our education side of it is also trying to bring up the skills of people involved, so especially the 3D artists, the 3D lead, like I say, is adopting more of a VFX supervision role. We have our own in-house VFX supervisors as well, and myself, I come from doing a lot of sort of supervision, so when I go through in a second, dealing with how we collect data, how we do stuff, how we light green screens, how we do all that kind of stuff. Data, that's the first little thing just mentioned about. This is a really fascinating video of me looking at this program. So we use a very simple program called Satellite, but there's lots of other ways of doing this. Basically, we're recording data on set quickly, cleanly, and so that we can easily take this back to the office and use it. Now, with a lot of cameras nowadays, you get metadata, which basically is the data contained within the file. So that'll give you, you know, some data. So, for instance, things like lenses, etc. That doesn't always work. So we're quite strict on going in and just recording as much as possible, you know, as much stuff as possible. So there, you see reference images, stuff that we can use for behind the scenes as well, that kind of thing. So a quick thing about what data we tend to record. So camera data, like I say, and within that, we obviously record what camera we're talking about. I don't know if any of you guys have ever done tracking, camera tracking, actually knowing kind of, it's going dark, yeah. Knowing what camera we're starting with, so we can basically get what's called the film back. And that is incredibly important and can so help our camera track. It's one of the things that gets, you know, a bit problematic if we don't know this information, especially when we come to camera tracking and your people are sliding all over the place and your 3D looks all wrong. Within that, camera lens. Again, just knowing that data, is it an 18mm camera? What type of lens is it? We work with we shoot a lot of red and ARRI, so we're working with some incredibly high-end sort of lenses, some expensive lenses. In fact, the Hong Kong one, we had £250,000 worth of lenses that we took over with us in our bags, which was a little scary. So knowing that kind of thing, again, is very important for when we come for, you know, setting up our 3D for camera tracking and all that kind of side things. Camera placement in the scene, so knowing where all our stuff is in the scene, where all our, again, our lights, and as well as the camera, and kind of the height and tilt. So we've got all this information that exists for our camera. I'm just keeping an eye on the time, so I'm going to breeze through this a bit quicker. As well as that, we have scene data, so reference photos, anything, even on using your phone or even drawing. So plenty of times I've just drawn like a little stick man and all those kind of things. It doesn't need to be good as long as the information is there. Measuring the scene is incredibly important, especially when trying to take stuff into 3D. So knowing the distance between this and this is 2.5 meters is so helpful for setting up your scene, especially when you're dealing with renderers that actually rendering a realistic image, so they're actually calculating exact measurements of light, etc. Lighting placements, as I say, in the scene, just so we know where everything is. HDRI, I'm sure you guys have all sort of come across this kind of thing, but the Messi, the cartoon one, we did a lot of HDRI on set, just to get this information so that we could very quickly light him within a scene. There's a lot of live action stuff in the cartoon, so it's a mix of all kinds of different things. So just having that information is you know, invaluable really for that. Otherwise, your poor lighting guys having to try and work it out on the fly. And just general information about what goes on. So I'm always writing what takes we do. I'm always writing what the director says and the light guy says, and it's just like, yeah, that's great, but I need to move that light over there. So you always make a note of this kind of thing. It's handy from an editing point of view. It's also handy from the kind of VFX supervision point of view, so that we've got all that data down there. So if you guys ever do this kind of thing, I just say just record everything. Just make sure you've got it. The app, Satellite. Yeah, it's cheap and cheerful on the iPad. So, but again, you could probably use you know, anything really. And I think a lot of VFX houses have their own kind of in-house type thing. It's one of the things actually we are possibly going to do at some point when we've got some downtime. So we also do things like lens distortion. As you probably know, most lenses have a slight distortion to it, and we need that to match into 3D. So we record our lens distortion using a grid. Basically, this, for instance, was the Hong Kong shoot, so we just went through just the pre-production stage and just shot. It takes 5 minutes. If you don't do it, it's a complete bloody nightmare after the fact sometimes. So, and it can really screw up your camera tracks if you've ever had to do that kind of thing. Again, reference, this is actually some of the on-set sort of 3D stuff. So this is what we took when we did a shoot using what's called a Milo camera, which is a motion control camera, and I'll show you some footage of that. It's a pretty massive camera rig, a scary one indeed. So our 3D guys basically mapped out exactly how they wanted to do it, where they wanted the light, how it's going to match what the eventual 3D is going to be. So from our pre-production planning side of it, and having this kind of reference, we record what happens on set, but as well as we kind of plan stuff beforehand. And there's another example. And another one, it seems. So, last thing, like I say, is just, we just record everything, we film, you know, we take photos of everything, even if it seems like it's not going to be important, but stuff like this has been quite handy. So on the World Trade Center 2-1, we had one shot that we ended up using some photos to try and work out exactly what they'd done on set, because the guys weren't available to tell us, so it's kind of, it's always handy. Let's just say, just snap away really annoying people. Yeah, so one of the other things is I do also DIT and set. I'll go more into this in probably the other side of things, but basically is ingesting the footage, conforming. We use Prelude normally, and basically it's possibly one of the most important jobs on the set because you're the one who's taking in all this footage, and if you screw that up, it doesn't matter how beautifully it's been filmed. It just is not good. Again, we can add metadata, we can do multiple copies, kind of thing. And this, like I say, is part of what we do, sort of very much in-house. So there's a little behind the scenes of stuff that I'll show you. So this is some stuff of us on set. This is, if I remember right, yes, so this is the miner camera I was talking about. It's a motion control rig. I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with these kind of things. They are awesome and fun. We actually almost broke ours as well, the one that we rented, because we were trying to get it to do crazy, crazy stuff. That's an important thing, is if you talk to your camera rig guys, because you can, if you want to do this swooping shot and the actual camera rig will not do it, it can really make for fun on set when you have to rejig everything that you're trying to do. Like I say, very health and safety on set, it's obviously important for those kind of things. We got shouted at a lot, like the Milo's coming. This is us in Hong Kong doing basically shooting something I can't really talk about fully, but there's some stuff of us running around with cameras. Awesome time. The guys that we worked with there, basically they did Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Rambo 2 and various other things, so I was kind of in sort of film geek heaven. What was also fun as well was working with all this crazy large cranes and stuff like that. Again, all shot in red, very sort of big production. So I guess from this is, as we're expanding, we're actually trying to do a lot of stuff, working with companies, but as well as in-house, doing a lot more kind of filming kind of thing, which is really good fun. So in terms of time, so I'll breeze through also the post-production side. So again, like I say, ingest and conform. This is one of the things that I'm sort of heavily involved with. Basically taking the footage that we filmed and pretty much prepping it for our 3D. Ingest is bringing footage in, conforming it is making it usable, really. Now, we've got some interesting workflows dealing with red. Premiere now supports red, which is really, really nice. So we can work natively within that. Again, we're sort of experimenting with our program, so we have a hero pipeline, one that we really we sort of broadened on Messi, so a lot of stuff was kind of trying to use that as a conform tool as well as a review tool. To some success, didn't always work. I think what we were trying to do was push it a bit too much and not quite what we wanted it to do. This, for instance, is just a little personal project I'm working on, which is a Hungarian TV short film. So this is something I'll talk about in a bit, about how we very open to doing lots of different stuff. But like I say, the conform side is just important. It's always good to get it right because you need to obviously be given 3D the correct edit and the correct shots. Otherwise, if they're working on something that's not correct, you're going to be kind of screwed. Project management. So this is one thing. This is how we used to do it a bit in the old days. So we all love Google Docs and that, but it can get a bit sort of difficult to understand, and depending on how many shots you've got and what's what. It can work, and it can work very smoothly as well. You just need to make sure that everybody knows what they're looking at and what they're trying to do. However, and I know there's other ones out there, and Shotgun, I've used Shotgun as well, which is really awesome, but we at the moment are using F-Track, mainly because of its integration with things such as Hero and Nuke Studio further down the line, which I'll talk a bit more about, Premiere and stuff like that. So it's very good, it's very handy. Again, these tools are awesome, but if your artists don't quite know how to use them, it's kind of pointless. So going back to the training side, is if you do have artists using it, just make sure everybody's working the same way and everybody knows what they're doing. Otherwise it can all go a bit sort of pear-shaped. Editing, we tend to pretty much do everything in Premiere. It's really improved over the few years, especially with working with R3Ds. So at the moment I'm working on a project where we've got 6K R3Ds and I'm just working directly off those, editing with those in real time. It's great. That might change a bit in terms that we're probably bringing Nuke Studio, and I don't know if you guys have come across Nuke Studio yet, but it's the founder's sort of new flagship of editing, conform, review, etc. So we'll see how that kind of goes. So I'll breeze through a little bit of the 3D side as well. I was going to talk a little bit about this shot, and we'll go a bit more into depth on it, like I say, in the other presentation. But our workflow is 3ds Max and V-Ray. This shot is from the World Trade Center film. It's one of the ones in there. And I kind of nicely asked our head 3D honcho just to do me a little 5-minute film. I won't show you all of it, but just to quickly talk through stuff. So this is kind of how we work with our 3D season, but I saw a lot of you work. Sometimes heavy geometry. We're looking at other ways around to try and tighten up our pipeline. We've been using a lot of new plugins and stuff. We've got some guys who are working in who are coders, doing Python to basically implement and speed up our pipeline, especially with regards to using Deadline as our sort of render engine. This is something that Farine told me to recommend, which is the Zor plugin, so it's great for selecting stuff and showing it. And then also what we then finally do is take it into V-Ray. Thanks to the V-Ray guys for asking me to be here. We dabbled in other renderers, and I like other renderers, but at the same time, V-Ray fits perfectly within our pipeline, especially when we came to doing messy. So it was quite nicely able to deal with a lot of the sort of crazy geometry and hair and all this kind of thing that we were trying to do. Other plugins, like you see, we use stuff for around Forest Pack, I think. Sorry, I'm not a 3D guy, so I'm trying to remember what Farine told me to tell you. Well, we can talk more into this a bit later. I'll show you the rest of the video in the other presentation, and you guys, if you want to see the rest of it, it's quite interesting when we get into more of the V-Ray stuff and kind of thing. So, but I just keep wary of time. So we deal in lots of different side of things. So our After Effects guys, we have a team of those who do the main motion graphics side of things. Our main tool for compositing is Nuke, and we're definitely kind of pushing how we use Nuke, so moving into more visual effects as well. We're kind of using a lot more of the 3D side, as I'll show you in a bit, and that kind of thing. Tracking as well, we use Mocha Pro a lot. I don't know if you guys have ever had to do much planar tracking and Roto, but I'd thoroughly recommend this as a bit of a time saver. And for our 3D tracking, it's either Peer Track or Nuke, where we can kind of build our 3D scene in there, depending on how fast we want to move. Again, this is a very basic kind of setup for a Nuke. This is kind of an old way of working. We're actually changing how we're going to work and break down, use less nodes. Using more kind of in-house tools, so that's something that we're developing. It's the great thing about Nuke is it's so open for Python, etc., for streamlining your kind of pipeline and creating stuff. And there, as you see, we're bringing in our different 3D renders. So rendered out of V-Ray, brought in with our mats, using those to kind of isolate what we're grading, where we're adding noise, where we're adding our focus, etc. like that. So again, I'm happy to talk more in depth if people are interested in this kind of thing. And it's kind of more what I do anyway, except for it tends to be more like horror films I'm doing. So a quick thing, we also grade as well. We kind of have a lot of internal grading, very much in Premiere. Again, depends how fast we want to move. If we've got one day to do the grade, then we'll probably do something like Magic Bullet, or if you guys know 2015 has got this volumetric thing, which is all looking very nice. Speed grader we use as well, and we have Resolve as well. So we're kind of set up to do stuff internally. Having said that, we do the occasional external grade. If you guys have ever dealt with external grades, just give yourself lots of time to prep for it, because and talk to your external grader, because supplying the footage in the correct manner is really important, especially if you film stuff yourself. So you get into colour space issues and all this kind of thing. And then delivery, we will deliver normally at the moment as a Premiere, so we're Windows-based, much to the annoyance of people here. And so we tend to do a DNX HD, and then we use Squeeze for our X264s to throw out additional delivery. Okay. So, I did say the other thing that I just flipped over there was Nuke Studio. So our delivery is going to essentially change, and the idea with that is just to bring us around to kind of what we're going to do in terms of the future. Project-wise, like I've mentioned, we're doing all IP stuff, etc., etc. But from a kind of technical point of view, one of the main things I want to sort of highlight is that we're sort of starting dabbling in V-Ray for Nuke. Now, I recommend you guys, if you're interested, go and speak to the V-Ray guys about this. This is incredibly exciting for us about using Nuke with the V-Ray render engine. We're at a very early development stage, and basically the guy has the VFX thing that I mentioned before. We've kind of do some shots involving spaceships, which is quite exciting. So our initial kind of development on that was just to start testing bringing the spaceship. So 3D are off doing their thing, but us as the compers could sit there and start mucking about and get some quite nice renders. So this was, I don't know exactly the timing of it, but it was pretty much like, I don't know, 30 seconds a frame or something. So it was just like really quick to render, throw out reflections, start testing stuff. And then the guys did a sort of little animation silly pass. So even though that looks really weird, it's actually split into images. But we basically were just like, just send us over what you guys are doing. Just keep us, you know, in the loop. And we can start mucking about with stuff, start thinking about how we're setting things up. Another thing that we do is kind of in-house projects, which I'm going to talk about last. But this is something that we did for 48 Hours Sci-Fi in London, a competition where basically you make a sci-fi movie in 48 hours, and basically you don't sleep for 53 hours, it seems, which was awesome fun. So we shot the whole thing. We did basically all 3D. Tried to make it not too complicated, so it's a crazy weird little drone thing. But then, in terms of this, and this is not something we did, but it was like, okay, well, we could easily take, like, if I was doing stuff from Compy, I could have taken that drone, could have taken the, you know, got 3D to give me the textures, and I probably could have done all the work in Nuke. So those guys could have been working on something, especially if you've got 48 hours to do this, and just start mucking about and basically using like V-Ray for Nuke just to really streamline the process. Streamline it from the kind of previs, the kind of look development stage, so they could be giving me stuff, I could be, you know, lighting it, making it, and saying, oh, actually, this is, you know, this is possibly something else we can do. This again was something that when I first dabbled it, we've got a shot in one of the films where we're going to have a plane flying over. It doesn't need to be big, so I don't need to go to 3D and say, can you render me out the plane, please? I can just get some geometry. I can sling, you know, some lights in, take the footage that I've already got, and then just do a very, very basic. So it's not brilliant, but it's just literally, this took me sort of 5 minutes to throw together. So you can, if you speak to the V-Ray guys, I'm sure they'll show you some of the stuff that there's a guy called Shaheen is doing with it, which is stunning, absolutely amazing work. So it's definitely from our point of view, something that we're very interested in looking at developing. And again, this is something that I'll cover a bit more, but again, took some geometry, took V-Ray proxy, if you guys have used V-Ray before, slung it in there, took us half hour, yesterday or day before even, just what can we do very quickly, just to test things. So there you see is the V-Ray proxy. We didn't have the textures, so we just created some textures very quickly, and then a self-elimination pass very, very quickly, and just kind of slung it in there, and hopefully made it work. Okay, so I've only got 5 minutes, so what I'm going to very quickly talk about is something called Squint Breakout. So we do solo projects, which are basically R&D projects when there's no work on. They're kind of designed for, like I say, when we've got downtime, but also just to kind of build up ideas, get people, doing stuff, keeping the creative sort of juices flowing. One such thing is this thing that I've been working on, which is a kind of personal project with a friend that we've kind of brought under the Squint mantle. Again, we're actually using a Maya V-Ray kind of pipeline. I'm just about to start doing the sort of final complement and stuff, but that's my mate Charlie, who's the animator guy. And basically, what we're looking at doing is just creating this little short film that he's done, pretty much all in-house, all rendered out by him. He gives us the stuff, and then what I'm going to do is basically build a little pipeline, simple pipeline in Nuke, get some of our other guys who are up for working on it, and then just start basically producing, just some hopefully nice little short film. That's just one of the first shots that I've just sort of started working on. So finally, very quickly, and this only takes a minute, so I should have done. This was also another little solo thing, just to finish up. It's a Christmas thing, so it's a little bit early, but we did last year. Everybody in the production team, so producers, cleaners, artists, compers, whatever, were just asked to do like a 1 second or 2 second little sort of ident involving Squint, involving around that. So I'll just quickly show you, because it nicely, I think, highlights some of the sort of attitude that we had to basically having fun at work. Okay, so basically, like I say, we had a couple of days, everybody went off. What I really like is there's like one in there that the producers did using Excel, so they don't know anything about 3D, they don't know anything about 2D, basically they just got Excel and just print screen, print screen, print screen, and then put it together as an animation. And to me, it kind of sums up, I guess, what Squint are kind of about in having fun, trying different stuff. Like you see, there's all sorts of different things. So there's all three guys doing, there's lots of messy in there, and there's obviously one guy who likes splashing people for some reason. So just to finish with, Thank you. Sorry it was a bit quick towards the end, but like I say, I'm doing another one a bit later, and if you want to ask questions, I guess later, feel free to grab me and chat. So, thank you.